Billion Dollar Journey, Chapter 1. Childhood and the first lesson of money in a small town in Eastern Europe, far from the centers of wealth and power. A boy named Daniel was born. His family was honest and hardworking, but poor. His father drove trucks for long hours. His mother worked as a nurse. Every evening, Daniel could see them counting every coin to make sure the family would have enough for bread, electricity, and school supplies. At 10 years old, Daniel began to earn his first tiny coins. He carried neighbors' bags home from the market, cleaned bicycles, and sold old newspapers. The sums were laughable by any standard, but to Daniel, they were proof of one thing. Money could be multiplied by effort. He remembered sitting in his small room one night, looking at the 2 wrinkled bills in his pocket. He whispered to himself, "I will not spend my life in shortage. If money rules the world, then I will learn to rule money." This was his first important decision, to become wealthy regardless of his circumstances. It wasn't about greed, it was about freedom. Freedom to choose where to live, what to do, and how to help his family. That clarity, born at such a young age, would define every move he made afterward. Chapter 2. The first entrepreneurial attempt school for Daniel was never only about books. He was observant, noticing things others ignored. One day, he realized something simple. Kids in his class loved sweets, yet the local store often ran out. So, Daniel found an old bicycle, rode to a wholesale warehouse, and bought candies at half the regular price. The next day, at school, he sold them for twice what he paid. The profit was small, but the principle was massive, buying low, selling high. Within weeks, he had made more money than his parents earned in a month of saving. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt control. He could create money out of thin air by spotting an opportunity. But soon, the school principal called him in. "There will be no business in these halls," the man declared, confiscating his box of candy. A crushing moment, or at least it should have been. Yet Daniel walked out of the office, smiling. He had just discovered another truth. Every business faced resistance, and every problem could be turned into a possibility. This was his second important decision, to treat obstacles not as endings, but as opportunities. The candy sales ended, but his hunger for business only grew. Years later, high school ended. Now came the fork in the road. University or work. His parents, practical as always, wanted him to pursue a safe career. Maybe accounting, maybe teaching. Something steady, predictable. But Daniel's heart already knew the answer. Business was not a hobby. It was his destiny. He chose to study economics at a university in the capital. But while his classmates spent evenings drinking or playing games, Daniel worked as a delivery boy for a courier service. By day, he studied finance, markets, and corporate strategy. By night, he entered the homes and offices of business people, delivering packages, observing their conversations, seeing their lives. One evening, a wealthy entrepreneur noticed how curious he was and gave him advice. If you want to make real money, stop looking at what people have today. Look for what they will always pay more for tomorrow. That single sentence burned into Daniel's brain. This became his third important decision, to learn not just from textbooks, but from real entrepreneurs. University gave him theory, but real business leaders gave him vision. Chapter 4. The first serious startup by the age of 20, Daniel was restless. He and a friend came up with an idea, a website for ordering food delivery from restaurants. At the time, the concept barely existed in his country. They had no investors, no fancy office. They worked from Daniel's tiny apartment, coding at night, then personally carrying orders on bicycles during the day. They printed flyers by hand and handed them out in front of restaurants. Within a year, they had 500 orders per month. The revenue was enough to pay bills and even reinvest a little. For 2 young dreamers, it felt like a revolution. Yet when Daniel approached investors, they laughed. "Your market is too small," they told him. "This will never be more than a local hobby." That night, Daniel stayed awake staring at the ceiling. He could either accept that his idea was limited, or he could imagine it bigger than anyone else dared. And so he made his fourth important decision, to think globally, not locally. If food delivery could work in one small city, why not in 10 cities? Why not across the entire continent? Why not the world? While others saw boundaries, Daniel began to see a map without borders. Daniel's company soon reached its ceiling in his home city. Competitors began copying him, eating away at his market share. Many entrepreneurs would have settled or sold out, but Daniel asked himself a dangerous question. How can I grow 10 times, not just 10%? The answer was bold. He sold most of his company for $1 million and used the funds to open an office in a neighboring country, one where delivery services were even less developed. It was a massive risk. He barely spoke the language, had no connections, and was burning through his small fortune quickly. This was his fifth important decision: to bet on scale, even when the risk is enormous. Within 2 years, the company operated in 3 countries, serving millions of customers. But at 28, Daniel faced disaster. A global financial crisis struck. Investors pulled their money, and well-funded competitors moved in aggressively. Within 6 months, his company lost 60% of its revenue. Advisors told him to sell and salvage what he could. But Daniel stayed up one night, writing on a piece of paper, "If I surrender now, I will never become a billionaire." Crisis is not to be feared. It is to be used. Instead of cutting back, he doubled down. He negotiated better terms with restaurants, offered couriers higher commissions, and rewarded loyal customers with bonuses. His profit margin shrank, but trust soared. This was his sixth important decision. In times of crisis, invest more in trust than in profit. Within a year, his company not only recovered, but dominated the region. At 30, Daniel realized that the true future of business was not just delivery. It was technology. Algorithms, data, automation. He hired a team of engineers and built an AI-driven platform that predicted demand and optimized delivery routes. Competitors were still working manually, while Daniel's system cut costs by 40% and doubled speed. Customers noticed. This was his seventh important decision: to invest in the future of technology, even when it seemed expensive and complex. Soon, giant corporations offered hundreds of millions to buy his company. Daniel refused. "I don't want to be rich once. I want to build an empire." At 34, Daniel entered Forbes for the first time. His net worth surpassed $1 billion. It was a moment of triumph, but also a crossroads. He could have stopped there, bought a yacht, lived in luxury, never worked again. But he asked himself, what's next? Do I just want to be rich, or do I want to change the world? He decided to diversify, investing in e-commerce, renewable energy, and biotechnology. This was his eighth important decision: to diversify into industries shaping the future. By 40, Daniel's empire was vast. But now he faced a new kind of enemy: global giants with tens of billions in capital. He could never outspend them, but he could outmaneuver them. His secret was agility. While corporations moved like ships, Daniel's teams moved like speedboats. They tested, failed, adapted, and launched faster than anyone else. This was his ninth important decision: to remain fast and flexible, even as a billionaire. At 42, Daniel's dream finally crystallized. His net worth exceeded $10 billion. His companies operated in 40 countries. He employed tens of thousands and invested in dozens of promising startups. A journalist once asked him, "What's your golden rule of success?" Daniel smiled and answered, "I always made the decisions that scare me the most, and those are the ones that made me stronger." This was his 10th and most important decision: never to choose the easy path. Final reflection from a boy selling candies in a poor town to a man leading an empire worth $10 billion. Daniel's journey was not about luck. It was about 10 critical decisions, each one shaping his destiny. 1. Decide to become wealthy, no matter the circumstances. See obstacles as opportunities. Learn from real entrepreneurs, not just books. Think globally, not locally. Bet on scale, even under huge risk. In crisis, invest in trust. Invest in future technologies early. Diversify into industries of tomorrow. Stay agile, even as a giant. Never choose the easy path. His empire was not built overnight. It was built decision by decision, risk by risk, vision by vision. And at the heart of it all was a boy's promise to himself. Never again to live in shortage, but to master the force that rules the world and use it not just to enrich himself, but to create, to inspire, and to lead.